Well, hello folks, welcome to another video. I am the Custard Prophet. Thanks for dropping by the channel. So today we are going to be doing something that I've been asked to do for a little while, which is to compare Tennis Elbow Manager 2 and Tennis Manager 2021. Which one do I think is best? It's basically what this video is going to all be about. Now, I think it's important to preface all of this with the fact that I've had Tennis Manager 2021 on the channel since the game came out, which was about 6 months ago, and Tennis Elbow Manager, it's been on the channel for about 2 years. So clearly both of these games I have enjoyed because I have maintained a long-term series with them. But that does give me the real option to be able to compare them quite well. I think I understand what the games are both about. I've played them long enough to realise the strengths and weaknesses of the games. So we'll see what my thoughts are. I think on the face of it, they are both very good games, and I've enjoyed both of them immensely. But I think they excel in different areas. Now, before we get into this, I also want to just shout out another tennis management game, Absolute Tennis Manager, which recently came out in December 2021. If you are interested in hearing more about that, because I think that game goes down a slightly different route, I've got a video in which I have reviewed that, so head on over to that. This isn't a complete review of the game as well, and that's important. So I have reviewed both Tennis Manager 2021 and TEM2 in separate videos, and I'll provide a link to those as well. So we are just going to be comparing the two today and basically giving them a bit of a rating. I've got 5 areas that I'm going to kind of rate them in and talk a little bit about them, and those are attractiveness, so how good the game looks, the tactics and training modules, which I think are probably the most important parts of the game outside of actual gameplay, the match experience, how good it looks, how good it feels during the games, and the kind of surrounding world, the outside world, so all the other bits that kind of link it all together, that kind of tennis management world that you get immersed in. Now, how believable is that? And finally, what I've called longevity, so how enjoyable it is over a long period of time. So does it get boring quickly? Okay, let's start with the first one, which is attractiveness. Let's start with Tennis Elbow Manager 2 for this one, because I think this is an area it perhaps lets itself down a little bit. People who watch the videos, I've seen comments from them saying it kind of looks like a mobile game, and I completely agree with that. It's more cartoonish in the way it's presented, and you've also got some sort of beeping noises which can be annoying as you click through buttons. I don't really like that. I think the visuals, the graphics of the game are not necessarily as great, and I mean that not necessarily within the actual tennis match itself. I'm talking about everything else, so the tennis center and other areas. That's not where all the effort's been put. Now, so I'd give that a score of 2 out of 5 for attractiveness. Now, the case of Tennis Manager 2021, I think this really shines in this area. They put a lot of effort in making the game look really nice. All of the screens look crisp, clean, well thought out. It looks very professional. It does not look anything like a mobile game. It looks, for those familiar, it looks very similar to Football Manager and the way those games are set out, which, I mean, it's one of the longest running sports management franchise games, so they've done well considering this is the first one. So yeah, in terms of how it looks, it is really pretty. And that's all the way through the game. There's a real strong attention to detail throughout the game. So I give that a 4 out of 10. Okay, so the tactics and training modules. So I think these are probably the most important parts of the game, as I say, outside of gameplay, because you need to be able to train your player up, improve them. You need to be able to put a strategy in place for each game. So starting with Tennis Elbow Manager, the way this is done is in a quite simple way. So you've really just got one screen to deal with in terms of the training. It's really intuitive, really easy to sort out how to train up certain things, but in the same way it's hard because it's a balancing act that you need to which areas are you focusing on, and this might be at the detriment of other areas because those reduce over time. So yeah, I find it, it's straightforward. It's just a single screen, but it's well done. It's well done enough so it's not easy. you can't just have everything at 100%, despite some of the AI players having that. And in terms of the tactics, well, a lot of that's done in game, and you can set up your match strategy. There's a lot of options there that you can explore. I'm still trying to get to grips with all of them, and those link in with your attributes and the other players' attributes, and you need to kind of work out how to play each individual opponent using the most appropriate strategy. So most of the time I have a base strategy and then I adapt it from there. I really feel in that game I'm sort of on top of the training and the tactics, and I've got a good idea of what I want to do now. So I enjoy that. I think it could be more complex, but I give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. In the case of Tennis Manager 2021, it is really complicated, the training, much more complicated, as are the match strategies. There's a lot of additional options to go at, which is good in a way, so you can really sort of adapt what you're doing, but I don't think it's as easy to change. It's not as intuitive, I don't find. I've found it, the training particularly, I've really found it difficult to make the training make a difference, whereas you can clearly see it making a difference with Tennis Manager 21. So whilst it looks pretty, it's kind of well designed and stuff, I think actually usability and kind of getting to grips with it takes a little bit longer. So I would score that down a little bit to 3 out of 5. So very similar, but I think both could be better, but both are perfectly serviceable. But I just prefer how Tennis Elbow Manager has done it. On to the other really important part of these things, the match experience. Now, one thing to realise about Mana Games, who make Tennis Elbow Manager 2, they also have the Tennis Elbow game series. So this is not a management game series, this is just a kind of like tennis game. So they have a good experience of making a good match experience. They've got a lot of ability to do that, and that really shines through. Not just, I mean, the anime, the graphics of the stadium and stuff, they're all right. They're nothing amazing, but they're all right, and the players. But I think the way it really shines is with the animations. So you see some really neat animations. It looks believable tennis play. The players do believable things, and you know, the long rallies, they're working the court. They're trying their very best to, each of the players trying their very best to build up an opportunity. And it's all kind of links in, and you can see it linking in with the attributes that the players have. So I think it's a really good match experience, so I give that a 4. In the case of Tennis Manager 21, whilst the rest of the game looks really superb, this is where it lets itself down, in my opinion. I find the match engine, the match experience, whatever you want to call it, disappointing. I think the amount of animations is far less. The decisions that the players make are strange, and the mistakes they make are quite often the same ones again and again. It just doesn't look quite right. I don't enjoy that as much, anywhere near as much as I do a Tennis Elbow Manager match. So I give that 2.5 out of 5. So the fourth one is the outside world. So that virtual world that is hopefully going to draw you into this tennis manager experience. Now, in my opinion, both of these games don't quite get this right. So thinking about what Tennis Elbow Manager does is they have a tennis center, which you can improve over time, so put courts in there and a whole bunch of other things. My problem with this is everything costs far too much early on. There's no upgrades you can do early on because you have no money. You need to actually have got into the top 100 or better to start making any money to be able to buy a court to practice on, which seems a bit crazy. And there's no options really to do that better. So I think that could be improved hugely, because I really love the idea. You're building up this tennis center, and it's sort of and it affects how the players develop and stuff. I think that's a brilliant idea, but it's just not done particularly brilliantly, I think, and it could be done much better. And then we've also got the schedule. There's a lot of tournaments that you can play in. I think that's really good option, from the youngsters all the way up to the world, all the way up to the Grand Slam tournaments, the likes of Wimbledon and the US Open and the like. So you've got a whole range of tournaments that you can play in, and you've got the qualifiers and all those sort of things. So it has got a good breadth in terms of that. There's no real scouting system, which is a shame. So if you're looking for a player to bring in, you kind of just look through them and choose one and get them, those who are interested to come. So that could be done a little bit better, but it doesn't feel like there is a massive load of stuff going on outside of the matches. You're sorting out your games and stuff, you're playing, you're building your player up, but I feel there could be more stuff happening outside. So I give it 2.5 out of 5. On the other hand, Tennis Manager 21, this has a little bit more, so there's a little bit more effort put into the likes of the tennis center. I still think it's quite expensive, the upgrades. You've got your 4 different areas that you can upgrade. I'd like to have a visual representation, like a map of what's going on. But I'd like smaller upgrade options, rather than having to spend 150,000 for your first upgrade, 270,000 for your second upgrade. I'd like smaller options that you can upgrade within those areas. Just to make it a little bit more varied and allow you to do things maybe earlier on in the game. You can start with a bunch more money, so you're then able to sort of maybe buy a few of those upgrades. You've got a chairman who is kind of watching over you and making sure you've got to hit some goals, which I do like. I think that's pretty cool. And you've also got a scouting system as well, which but it's horribly broken. It takes too long to scout, but it is there. So there is stuff there, and I think it is a better kind of outside world than they've got in TM2. So I'll give that 3 out of 5. So then finally, longevity, so playability, addictiveness, whatever you want to call it, how well the game draws you in and it keeps you playing. Well, you can probably tell with Tennis Elbow Manager 2, I have played that game weekly for 2.5 years. I don't do that with every game. I mean, making YouTube videos does mean that I am kind of fixed to doing that, but it doesn't ever feel like a chore. I do always love playing that game, and part of that is because the matches are somewhat unpredictable. My player, who is currently 5th in the world, can lose to players way down the rankings, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. No matter how good your tactics are, no matter how good your training is, on that day it just hasn't worked out. And I really like that aspect, and it's the same with the AI. There's a lot of seeds who get knocked out early. There's a lot of sort of surprises going on. It doesn't feel too many, but it feels like they've got that balance absolutely spot on, and I love that aspect of the game. I did have a problem with some players who were seemingly ridiculously good early on. They sort of coming through youngsters who were ridiculously good. I think they might have updated it such that you don't get quite as many fantastic players coming through. So that seems to have improved. But I keep coming back. It's a ridiculously fun game to play, and it's quick. It's really quite a quick game. So you can spend as long as you or as short as you want, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable game. I'd give it 4 out of 5 for that. For Tennis Manager 2021, I think it, as I say, it looks really nice, but I think some of the places where it lets itself down, that match experience, the issues with the tactics and training, making it a little bit harder to sort out and get where you want, I find that takes away some of the fun. But the real issue I have with it in this category is the games. So the matches in certainly with the AI within tournaments, it's at the higher levels, the seeds seem to go through 99% of the time. It seems that the balance, you don't have that level of randomness where you get the top seed being knocked out. You get a surprise player going all the way through. It just feels like that doesn't happen anywhere near as much. It seems to be always the same. You look down the list of who's gone through the first round, and it's seed, and you think, we want a little bit more than that. So I feel they could upgrade the randomness factor a little bit more, so you can get some of these fun little changes, and that does make a big difference in the game. If it's always predictable, it reduces the fun. And I do find sometimes myself, just this game, of all the games I play, is the one that maybe I leave till last to record, and that possibly says something. So I still enjoy it, and I'll give it a 3 out of 5 rather than the 4 that Tennis Elbow Manager got. Adding all of those up, my rating would be 16 out of 25 for Tennis Elbow Manager 2, and Tennis Manager 2021, that comes in at 15.5, and that kind of reflects it. I think they are even games, but in terms of what they are. But for me, Tennis Elbow Manager just gets it. It's just that bit more enjoyable, and it's the one out of the two. If I could only play one, it would be that one. But I think it's important to say, if it depends on what you're looking at as to whether you'll enjoy one game or the other. If you are a real detail-oriented person, you really enjoy the whole engine of tactics and training, I think you'll get more out of the Tennis Manager 2021 game than Tennis Elbow Manager. If you're wanting just to have the story aspect, the progression of a player over time, then it will be Tennis Elbow Manager, which I think would be better for you. But that's my take, and I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are. Anyone who's played both of them or just the one, what do you think I got right? What do you think what you've got wrong? And what would be your scores of those 5 categories? Okay, so I think that will do. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. If you want more tennis management content, just go into the playlists. We've got 2 or 3 playlists focusing on tennis management, a couple of Let's Play series, and a bunch of one-off videos looking at tactics and training and things like that for Tennis Elbow Manager. I haven't done any for Tennis Manager 2021 for the reasons I've kind of talked about. Anyway, folks, I will see you very shortly. Goodbye.